I'm largely ignorant and naive to a number of things about real life. I'm the first to admit it. There are a lot of areas where, other people have normal lives. And per se, Eddie, the reality is this, and I think that we have to admit this. You and I live in, I'm not going to say, we don't live necessarily, we live AI lives, right? We don't go in and punch a time clock. We're not, getting calluses on our hands, and we're not having to get up and, get the blood flowing for an 8 to 5 and then get, the 1 in the afternoon kind of energy pickup or whatever to carry through after a long, boring meeting or Zoom meeting or whatever else. We have our jobs are fun, right? We have fun every day. It's pretty lighthearted. I'm not saying it's the easiest thing every single day, but for the most part, we are a little bit naive as to the way the real world works on a day-to-day. So with that said, I am genuinely curious to this because I do not know. It's a Wednesday that feels like a Friday because tomorrow being a holiday and then 99% of the world is off on Friday. So, you're getting ready for a long weekend. It's a wonderful time of year. People are traveling, whatever else. My question for most people is this. Are people working today, or is it kind of under the guise of if you're getting a 4-day weekend, you go ahead and make it 5? Are people punting on the day from a work standpoint today, or are they just kind of tying up a few loose ends before they hit the road for planes, trains, and automobiles traveling to family for Thanksgiving? Do we know? What's your guess?
So my only friend, as you know, his name is Alec. Yep. I believe his job, he works Monday through Friday. And in order to not work on Thanksgiving, he has to double up his workday between today and Friday. So he has to split his Thursday duties between today and Friday. So he's doing a little bit more.
So he only gets 1 day off?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I'm curious, and we should do the text line roll call. 239-1070 is the text line, or you can always text my phone at 523-9288. Both are 317 area codes, and let me know if today, are you already basically 1 foot on the weekend, or are you all in for today until the better part of the afternoon? And the reason I say it is because, A, I'm a little naive to that, but B, this may be my favorite weekend of the year. And it is so centered around sports and family and just everything that is great about being a good old American, right? And good afternoon to you on this Wednesday that feels like a Friday. My name is Jake Query. You just heard the voice of Eddie Garrison. It is Query & Company here on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. I just got back from on my way in.
You having headphone issues?
I am.
Okay.
Just got back from, I stopped by the Drumstick Dash packet pickup. I am excited for tomorrow morning to be able to run the Drumstick Dash. For those of you who are doing it, it's going to be chilly, but it's going to be a great event. And I want to thank Concerts for a Cause, which is Bruce Kidd, who is just a tremendous guy with a heart bigger than the state of Indiana, for making a donation to the Drumstick Dash and to Wheeler Mission, because this is a fundraising effort, and we are moving our feet so others can eat. And Bruce Kidd, who raises money through Concerts for a Cause that then he distributes to different charities around town, when I was talking about it, reached out to me and said, you know what, I've got a check for you. I want to present that. And so I just delivered that to Wheeler Mission, and the Drumstick Dash tomorrow will continue to raise that money. And then, of course, it is family time and football time and the weekend that is upon us with the bucket game and everything going on, culminating with the Colts and the Houston Texans coming up on Sunday. But plenty to talk about over the course of today and the weekend in sports. And let's begin with what happened last night at Assembly Hall. I'm telling you right now, and I'm not telling you anything that people here don't already know or weren't hopeful towards or assuming. But I think Indiana's pretty good. I mean, they're ranked now, obviously. That's good. Rankings, what does it mean in, before November? You don't really know. But the couple of things that I've heard about the way that Indiana has prepared themselves for this season. I know we've talked about it with Don Fisher, and I've mentioned it on the show before. But when Indiana made their coaching hire and went out and got Darren DeVries from West Virginia, we didn't know a lot about him other than the fact that he has, his son is a great player, had been a conference player of the year before going to West Virginia. Last year, Tucker DeVries sat out the vast majority of the year for West Virginia, which allowed him another year of eligibility, and people in West Virginia are upset about it because of the fact that they look at it and they say, wait a minute. When Scott Dolson said that Darren DeVries first got on their radar when Indiana saw West Virginia playing in a tournament last year, this time of year, and then it was after that Tucker DeVries was injured and he missed the rest of the year, and then he had eligibility to go with his dad to Indiana. Wait a minute. West Virginia fans all up in arms about it, right? And if you're a West Virginia basketball fan and you look at, the good and the bad, you take it and you give away. The bad being that you lose your coach and a really marquee player to Indiana from the West Virginia basketball standpoint. And the good being that the other time that your basketball program intersected with or intertwined with a part of Indiana basketball, you dodged a bullet big time in getting yourself into what would have been a complete disaster. But this time, so that was probably good for West Virginia in the overall grand scheme of things, and this time they're disappointed by it. But Darren DeVries, what we knew when he took the Indiana job was that he was going to have to rebuild this roster. And then in addition to rebuilding the roster, the narrative was, or the thought process was at West Virginia, that his team, while it was right on the brink of the NCAA tournament, they are one that kept themselves in every game, and they were pretty disciplined in the way that they played. And that looks to be the case. I watched last night in that game with Kansas State, and it did kind of feel like, and we don't know.
I was there.
Did you go down?
I did go down.
Well, you never mentioned that you were going down there.
Well, I didn't get tickets until probably 5 o'clock.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, how often have you been to Assembly Hall?
I think it was my first game in like 4 years.
When did this happen? I hate to say this, not to be Debbie Downer here, but I'm still under the thought process that every single game of Indiana University basketball is a sold-out game. I don't care whether they're playing Alcorn State or Kentucky. Up in the balcony, the nosebleed seats, everything else packed all the way through, and yet I saw some of the camera angles yesterday, and there were people in the balcony last night, I guess, right?
Yes,
But it still was not sold out, right?
No, I mean, I thought there was a good turnout for for a break game. Like, no students were there.
Fair.
I thought it was a good turnout.
I think Kansas State is also decent, and it remains to be seen what kind of a team Kansas State's going to be. But it felt last night for Indiana felt like a game when I was watching it where I thought to myself, this feels like a first or second round matchup in the NCAA tournament. That's the kind of team that if Indiana has a really good year and they become a 6 seed or a 5 seed, that you could see them playing a team like Kansas State either in the first round of the tournament, as an 11, or in the second round if Kansas State pulled an upset. And, it was a solid game. And in Kansas State, the thing that was most impressive to me about Indiana was this. And this is the thing that I've heard about Darren DeVries and that Indiana team and the way that he's put it together. That roster, as we talked about with Don Fisher, is a bunch of new guys that have never played with one another. And it's a bunch of new guys that Indiana fans are unfamiliar with. But their awareness of where each other are on the floor, they look like they played together for a very long time, and that comes down to this, what I've heard, and that from people I know that have gone to a lot of practices down there, that Darren DeVries in his practice with that team is extremely deliberate, that their practices are super intense, their practices are very laser-focused, there are very few minutes that are wasted. There's not a lot of standing around. It is let's go, boom, 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 and every minute has a purpose and a design. And from my understanding, and again, I'm not down there at these practices, but I'm going by what people I had somebody who played for Bob Knight tell me, look, I've been to like 6 practices so far, and they are more intense than the most intense practices we had under Bob Knight, and mostly focused on the defensive end of things and the awareness defensively of just being up on somebody, helping, etc. And if you watch that game last night, Kansas State is to this point, one of the most high-powered offensive teams in the country. P.J. Haggerty is a volume scorer. And I thought last night, like even C.J. Jones, he had a couple of threes that you felt like, again, a rhythm shooter, right? And yet every time that Kansas State looked like, in particular in the early part of that game, Eddie, you were there, you saw it, each time Kansas State was able to, once they got down, 20-4, and then they closed it down to a 4-point game. I think it was 4 or 2-point game. Indiana was then able to pull away from there. And the reason they were able to do it, I was so impressed by, and I don't know that you can look at the numbers and say, they limited them to 42% shooting. Okay, they limited them to 40% three-point shooting. Those are still good numbers. But Indiana and their perimeter defense and their ability to, as Kansas State was rotating and doing other things with their spacing on the floor, I thought Indiana's perimeter defense was so sound that they sealed off the middle where Kansas State then, and they were able to hit shots with Kansas State, but they weren't able to find offensive balance throughout that game because Indiana defensively was so good. And then on the offensive side of things for Indiana, you're going to take any game where when you get a game where DeVries and Wilkerson are combining for 8 field goals in the game, and you still get 21 from Reed Bailey, and you get offensive production elsewhere. Sisley was really good last night. And the guy that I really like, and I mentioned last week, I think, that I thought was going to be a guy that was going to play his way into being a very popular Indiana basketball player, is Tatum Conaway. I just think he brings a speed and an energy about him that also kind of carries and pushes Indiana. But you could see last night for Indiana in the way that they play that, again, offensively they have numerous ways in which they can score, but defensively you are not going to have many teams that are going to get a lot. Now, Kansas State, give them credit. They hit contested shots. I mean, they created for themselves at times some open looks, but not a lot of them. I thought, Eddie, and you tell me, you were there, I thought Indiana defensively was very impressive.
Yeah, I thought they were very good on the perimeter. Like you said, they took away a lot of the dribble drive penetration, because when you look at just kind of like the numbers from P.J. Haggerty, he's not a three-point shooter by any means. He doesn't put up a ton of shots. I think the most he put up in a game was 7, and he had to go in that night, so why not throw up a couple of heat checks for Kansas State? But they did a really good job of cutting him off so he couldn't get into the lane to his mid-range game, because that's where a lot of his scoring came from. And then, especially in the second half, he started to get it going late. But at that point, it was just a one-man show for Kansas State by the time Haggerty started getting, his fair share of buckets toward the end. The one concern I still have about this team, Jake, is when they get into Big Ten play, are they going to be able to match the physicality of some of these other teams? Are they going to be able to match the physicality of Purdue with Trey Kaufman-Marin and Oscar Clough? Like, that's the big question I have about them as conference play, approaches. Are they going to be able to compete enough on the glass to prevent teams from getting second and third chances? And are they going to be able to sustain this level of three-point shooting that they have had so far in the non-conference?
The physicality part of it as it goes against Purdue is fair, except for that then you ask yourself, well, how many people are?
It's
you
true.
know what I mean? I mean, yeah, if you want to go with other teams in the Big Ten, I get it. But with Purdue, I mean, Eddie, Purdue's balance in terms of what Purdue can do, you want to talk about a team that can score in so many different ways. If you are playing Purdue, you look at it and you go, okay, we've got to take away the block for Trey Kaufman-Marin. Okay, fine. So then you double them over, and then as you mentioned, Oscar Clough's on the other side. We're going to take away Braden Smith and his penetration, okay, fine, then he's just going to back out and then cross over to Fletcher Lawyer. We're going to take away, they have so many different areas where they can score and ways that they can score. I mean, Purdue has so many different identities that they can be, and because of their experience, they are able to be any of those comfortably on any given night. But point taken on Indiana. But I feel like, Eddie, this IU basketball team this year is going to be kind of like the New England Patriots in the point of we're going to continue to say to ourselves, they're playing well and they have a good record, but I'm still not sold yet. And how far do you go into it of saying that before you finally just say to yourself, you know what, maybe they're just actually good. Maybe they're just actually good, right? Now, football side of things, Indiana-Purdue, bucket game Friday night, the 100th variation of this. Now, these two teams have played 27 years, but this is the 100th year for the bucket itself. I did find it peculiar, and Eddie, I'll have you look this up because I don't have the answer in front of me. Maybe you've already looked this up and you're a step ahead of me. But I found it curious that there was an article written about the fact that this is the 100th game of the Old Oaken Bucket. It's the 100th version of the Old Oaken Bucket. And this long article about the history of the bucket and the ebb and flow of it, and it's only the third time that the bucket game has featured an Indiana team ranked in the top 5. The other was in the 40s and the 60s, so the first time in over 50 years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the ebb and flow of this rivalry. It has been seldom that both teams were really good at the same time. Purdue has obviously had more eras of very good to great teams than has Indiana. The cradle of quarterbacks, Len Dawson and Mark Herman and Jim Everett and Drew Brees, and, the list goes on, right, of great quarterbacks that have played at Purdue. And for Indiana, the periods, the Bill Mallory era, pretty darn competent. Kevin Wilson era, not bad, but never really broke through. And probably the best period in terms of a competitiveness between these two teams would be like coming out of the Mallory era and then into the Tiller era in terms of a solid standing for both programs. But what I was miffed by, and I could have looked this up, what is the record of the two teams in the bucket game? There's this long article, and wouldn't that be the first question you'd ask? If this is the 100th game, it was fascinating to me, the Monon Bell game. If I'm not mistaken, when the Monon Bell game had its 100th version of it, at that time, it literally was 47, 47, and 6 was the career record. I mean, it was dead even. Now, I'm going to guess, do you happen to have before you the record of the Old Oaken Bucket, Eddie?
I do.
I'm going to guess that in the Old Oaken Bucket games that it is. Now, I don't think it would be, Purdue's got to have the advantage here, right?
That would be correct.
Is it a sizable advantage, or is it just if you just showed these numbers to somebody from Fresno, California, that had no concept of Indiana and Purdue football, would they immediately look at it and say, yeah, one of these two programs has really been bad? Or would they say, that looks pretty even?
One of these two programs looks bad.
58-42.
You're not even close.
72-28.
You're getting closer.
77-23.
So the all-time series, Purdue leads 77-43-6.
Okay.
In terms of just the bucket game itself, Purdue is 63-33-3.
Okay. Who allows a tie in the bucket game?
I'm sure that was back before lights were at Fields,
Understood. But I mean, you race afterwards, you race to the wagon to see who wins, right? You can't have a tie in the bucket game. You can't. It's going to be, I'm going to right now offer a traffic report for Friday.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. The game kicks at what time on Friday in the bucket game?
That's a great question. I was trying to figure out when the last time they tied was.
That's also a good question.
7:30.
If it's a 7:30 kick, I'm going to say right now that there is going to be a caravan, a nonstop parade.
November 22nd, 1958. Tied.
What was the date? What was the date on that
15.
again?
November 22nd, 1958. The
I can tell you-
61st meeting.
On the 50th anniversary of that game, no one was talking about it, I can tell you that. There's going to be a sea of red heading up I-69 around 465 on the west side and straight up 65. Because I've looked online, and Purdue fans that have tickets, the weather's not going to be great, don't get me wrong, but Purdue fans with tickets to that game are selling them, and Indiana fans are gobbling them up. That is going to be a de facto almost home game for Indiana. The disparity in terms of the win percentage for Purdue in the time of the bucket game is going to be probably not that representative of the amount of fans from Indiana there, but for an away game, it is going to be a huge showing for Indiana. Huge. Probably 50-50. For a game at Ross-Ade, that's saying something. The college football playoffs yesterday were announced again, and this Notre Dame-Miami thing's interesting. Could it be, when it comes down to it, after it's all said and done, that only one of those two is going to get in? I thought personally, and I realize that they have 2 losses. But Notre Dame at 9, I guess you look at it and you go, well, who would you put them in front of at this point? But doesn't it feel like Notre Dame is one of the 5 to 7 best teams in college football right now? If you were to survey, whether it's Ryan Day or Kurt Signetti, if you were to survey and ask, okay, you've got to open in the playoff and you've got to choose between Texas Tech, Oregon, Ole Miss, or Notre Dame, wouldn't they all go with somebody other than Notre Dame?
I would probably, especially if Ole Miss doesn't have Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I mean.
Have you seen that?
Well, I know that there's what is there. Was there something I missed this morning?
That if he elects to not coach,
of course,
then he won't coach the college football playoff.
Yeah, it's going to be the Bill Frieder treatment. I get that. And wasn't there a deadline? I thought there was a deadline already for Lane. I'll be honest. I've kind of I'm not going to tune out is the wrong word, but Lane Kiffin news, and I don't dislike Lane Kiffin. He's fine. And I went to a game last year at the Grove and tailgated and all that at Ole Miss. It was cool, but there always seems to be drama around Lane Kiffin and what's he going to do, what's he not going to do, and the 11th hour leave of Tennessee and, the handed a job at a young age in the NFL and everything else, that after a while, Lane Kiffin feels like the football coaching version of Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. Every year it's like, well, I got to figure out what I'm going to do and where I'm going to be next year. And it's like, dude, you're under contract. What are we doing here? And I know that, and I don't even know this, Eddie, again, almost blissfully ignorant by choice here.
Mm-hmm.
Lane Kiffin, the last that I knew, Lane Kiffin was lock, stock, and barrel, the choice that was going to be at Florida, and then LSU came into play. Which school is it that we assume that he is, narrowing in on?
The Tigers. LSU.
Which would you rather take? LSU. If you're LSU, would you rather have Brian Kelly or Lane Kiffin?
I think you would rather have Lane Kiffin.
On personality, you probably would.
Well, and the fact that he knows how to win games.
Okay. Big games, you mean? Does he, though?
I mean, he's had Ole Miss right there in the thick of it each of the last, how many years.
I understood, but when's the last time Ole Miss went into a game, you're like, this is a massive game for Ole Miss, and then they win? I mean, you get what I'm saying?
I do.
I like him. I don't dislike him. But at the same time, it seems like...
When they beat LSU, when LSU was still number 4 earlier this year?
Yeah, but then LSU spiraled from there, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely spiraled.
They beat Oklahoma.
All right, Colts-Texans, we're going to get into that over the course of today, but we got a loaded show. High school football state finals weekend is upon us. The holiday season in terms of helping out others is upon us. We're going to talk about that as well. And Joel A. Erickson will join us in the 2 o'clock hour, get us up to speed on where the Colts stand from a health standpoint with a massive, massive showdown. With the Houston Texans coming to Lucas Oil Stadium, it does not get any bigger. I was at the packet pickup today for the Drumstick Dash, and somebody said to me, Jake, it feels like This is a boulder in the stream game on their season. And I said I could not agree more. If they lose to Houston, then it does become a little bit white knuckle for the Colts. And that defense is stout, and it's something that we need to discuss, and we will over the course of today. But when we come back, talking about what we were talking about earlier, not only the Old Oak and Bucket game, but also what Indiana did last night, Peegs.com, Jeff Rabjohns. Rabby joins us next. Interesting to see the way schedules are now built in college basketball, notably college football as well. There's so much discussion about, last week was the week in the SEC and, Clemson as well. Like all of a sudden, it's Furman on the schedule and it's Chattanooga on the schedule this late in the year. And from a basketball standpoint, back in my day, in the old way, it was you would play your pre-conference games, and then as soon as the conference began, boom. That was all you did. Not the case for Indiana. They will begin here within a week in the Big Ten at Minnesota is upcoming on December 3rd, but they have Bethune-Cookman before then. And then sprinkled in there, you got Chicago State and Siena, but two big ones, Louisville and Kentucky. Indiana, a win last night at the Assembly Hall. Joining us now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line, a friend of the show, Jeff Rabjohns from Peegs.com joining us. And Rabbi, I'll begin with this. When you look at where Darren DeVries' group is so far, and I think that they have been very impressive, and these are guys that we were unfamiliar with when they arrived in Bloomington. What still for you is a question mark? What is one area in terms of either stylistically or effectiveness that you have wondered about with Indiana that you find yourself still uncertain as to its answer?
I think rebounding against bigger players, bigger front lines is the number one question for me, I think, for the season. And I think it's something that is going to be the number one question because you just don't have, overwhelming size inside. So you're going to need nights like they had last night against Kansas State where everybody goes in and blocks out. Sometimes when you give up offensive rebounds, sometimes it's not the center's fault. Sometimes it's not your foreman's fault. Sometimes your guards and wings didn't block out, and the other team sent 3 instead of 2, and the 6'4", wing went in and got one. So it's not always about size. It sometimes is about wingspan. And, IU doesn't have guys who are going to magically grow here in the next 3 weeks. But I think, rebounding, keeping teams, and for the most part, defensive rebounding, keeping teams off the offensive glass. I think that's going to be something that, you look at and say, okay, what can push Indiana to another level if they can keep teams off the offensive glass? They gave up double-figure offensive rebounds to Lindenwood, which you can't do. But it happened in a 20-point win, so it's harmless in a way. In fact, it's completely harmless as far as your metrics go. But then you come back against Kansas State, and what do? It's a whole lot better. They block out. They only gave up 8 offensive rebounds, and a couple of those came in the late going where, the outcome was decided. You had, backups, walk-ons on the floor. So, but I think for me, I love the shooting. I love the ball movement. I love the style of play. It's such a smart style of play. They really space the floor. You're going to have shot nights when the shots don't always go in, but, metrics favor the teams that shoot more threes if you have 3-point shooters. So they need to shoot more threes, not less. I mean, they need games last night where it's, okay, boys, go fire it away. 33 threes, good. Next time, you might want to try to get up 35. Now, that's not going to be every night, but overall, when you're built to really make threes and you've got multiple guys who can shoot the percentages IU has, you need to be getting up threes. So I like everything. I think the big question, it's a good question you asked, by the way. I think it's, rebounding, specifically defensive rebounding.
Do you think, Jeff, Kansas State is like Indiana in the fact that is a team that, I was listening to Fish in the pregame, and when he's doing the introductions with each guy, it used to be he just lists the hometown. Now he lists the previous school, right? And for Kansas State also, all guys that are new to one another. But do you believe that at the end of the year that is a win they got last night that will go in their positive win column in terms of NCAA seeding and resume?
It doesn't hurt you. How much is it going to help you, I think, is the question. So I think that's going to depend upon if Kansas State's an NCAA tournament team or not. If they're an NCAA tournament team, then it does help you because, as you know, wins against NCAA tournament teams is, part of the whole Selection Sunday question. So that certainly would be a big positive. But I think Kansas State, if they're not going to defend, really at all, I think they may be in for a tough season. And P.J. Haggerty is really talented, but he's, these guys who, 4 schools in 4 years, 5 schools in 5 years, you kind of look at him and you're like, okay, well, how much of this is about winning? But I'm not questioning P.J. I don't know P.J. at all. I just, in general, it's going to be interesting to look as we start to get some actual metrics. Like, okay, teams had guys who were on their 4th school in 4 years. Did that player elevate that program or not? Didn't really change anything. We don't have enough data yet, but it's going to be interesting. But Indiana really needs Kansas State to make the NCAA tournament. That's what they really need. If they don't, it doesn't hurt you, but it just doesn't help you.
Who is the player for Indiana? Jeff Rabjohns, my guest, Java House Peel and Pour guest line, Peegs.com, where you can always read his coverage of Indiana basketball. We know, obviously, Wilkerson and DeVries are scorers, and they're shooters in particular, Jeff. I mean, we know this, right? If they get hot, either one of them, you got to feed them. But is there somebody other than those two that you feel like might be the most important for Indiana in terms of their offensive pace, and somebody that can – I have somebody in mind here, but I'm curious if there's anybody that jumps out at you, somebody that can kind of be a bell cow offensive glue player that determines whether Indiana's going to play at a fast pace or also have a tendency to slow down and go into a half court.
Yeah, well, there would be 2 for me, but and they're very different, and they're equal for me. So I'm gonna cheat, and I'm gonna give you 2. You asked for 1, I'm gonna cheat and give you 2. Reed Bailey and Tatum Connerway. Reed Bailey because when you look at lineups, it's always good to keep in mind it's not just the 5 best players; it's the 5 who function together the best. Maximize what a team is built to do. Well, what's this team built to do? Make threes. So you've got to get threes for Lamar Wilkerson and Tucker DeVries, but you also have to keep the ball moving. So you create chances like they did last night for like a Connor Enright, who had 2 made threes, for Trent Sisley, who had another made 3, for Trent Sisley to be able to tear off down the court like he can because he's got legitimate speed and go steal you a fast break. The ball has to move. So who's the best passer on the team among the tall guys? Reed Bailey. And it's not really all that close. Bailey's assist rate is number 9 in the country among players 6'10" or taller. So if you have a team built to take threes and that needs the ball, Reed Bailey's really, really helpful. Plus, Reed Bailey's trainer and I were texting last night. I got to give Jason credit for reminding me about this. Look at Reed's numbers. He excels in high foul games because he's very good at drawing fouls and he makes free throws. IU beats a Power 4 team last night, and Reed Bailey's the leading scorer. He was really good in the second half, in particular scoring, but he was good moving the ball in the first half. So, there are really multiple reasons why Bailey can be an X factor at times, as long as people keep in mind this is not a post player, okay? I don't care if you put a little C for center next to his name in the lineup. He's not a post player. At his best, he's a point forward, but he can do some other things. But then Tatum Connerway, because his ability to really play with such speed and really turn the corner and really get into the lane. He's the only guy that IU has who has legit explosion. The rest of them have some quickness. I love Sisley's speed in the open floor. But as far as actual explosion, burst with the ball, it's Tatum Connerway. He can actually take them to a different level as far as speed. If you're talking about like how fast you play, pace of play, it's Tatum Connerway. Because I made the joke last night that it's almost like that Fast and Furious video game. Okay, when you're coming around the corner and you punch the nitrous button and boom.
Right. You're no question.
Everybody else.
It's funny, Jeff, because
he can shoot well enough. 2 for 7 from last night from 3. Hey, you'll take it. You'd love 3 for 7, but it's not like he's just a black hole.
I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago that said, look, Jake, you're going to hear a lot about, obviously DeVries and Wilkerson and Bailey for that matter. And they were like, by the end of the year, Conaway is going to be a guy that Indiana fans love because of just exactly what you're talking about, right? Now, the other guy, and I'm curious of this, Trent Sisley, my initial reaction, and Jeff Rabjohns, I want you to tell me if I'm wrong on this. My initial reaction to Trent Sisley is that he is a really valuable player, not just because of his age and because you're going to have him for a while, but theoretically, but also because to me he seems like the most schematic chameleon of all of them. In other words, he is a guy that depending on which style you want to go with or what matchup offensively you need to go to over the course of the Big Ten. He can play for you in different ways and with different combinations on the floor and change his operating area and be equally effective, whether you're going fast, slow, etc. Now, am I giving him way too much credit there?
No, I think you're spot on. Now, with the caveat that he is a freshman, a good freshman, and if you throw him really out on the wing against a 23-year-old small forward who's got a lot of wiggle, that's going to be a struggle. But that's okay. It's okay for freshmen to have some struggles. I love what Trent Sisley's doing. I love the fact that for his senior year of high school, he chased competition. And I don't mean that he left his high school. I mean that he chased competition and went to a major prep school program for the idea that I want to be challenged every day in practice. This is a kid who runs to competition. And you and I have been around long enough to see athletes as they come up. There's the guys who run to competition, and there's the guys who run from competition, pad their stats. Well, Trent Sisley went down to Montverde, took on a very difficult challenge, and embraced competition, and his numbers were probably half what they could have been at a traditional high school. But he didn't care about numbers. He cared about getting better. And what happened? He got better. His motor has always been phenomenal. His motor was phenomenal at Heritage Hills. It was phenomenal for Indiana Elite and AAU. It was outstanding at Montverde. You got to remember, this is a guy who was team MVP at a national prep powerhouse like Montverde. Okay, that's how well and how hard Trent Sisley played and competed as a senior in high school. He really did a good job. And now he's coming in, and we heard all summer, hey, man, Sisley's really competing. Hey, and by the time we got to, like, the end of July and, AU's kind of over and the coaches are starting to get back into working with their players, we heard, man, Sisley's going to get some real minutes. And I remember being told that, and I was like, I'm just making sure you're telling me against, Power 4 teams, not against the Bethune. And they were like, no, right. Trent Sisley's going to play. Get ready to see Trent Sisley come off the bench early and get real minutes against real opponents. He can step out and make that three. We saw him run the floor. He's got legit speed. I think sometimes, people make assumptions, and like Trent Sisley's got speed, so he can get down the floor. He's probably not quite Cody Zeller-ish, but he's like that. He can beat his man down the floor, and IU passes the ball well, and they look, those hit-aheads are part of what they're trying to do. He can go in and rebound. He will go in and rebound. He had to play center last year at times for the Montverde team, so he's willing to go in and do the hard hat stuff. You elbow him in the head, I don't know if he's even going to feel it, much less care, other than he may turn around and elbow you in the head later on. But he's got the hard hat mentality. He's got skills. He's 6 for 16 from 3 so far. That's absolutely, you're talking about a 6'8" freshman coming in and giving you a 3 per game at 38% make rate. You're absolutely going to take that. And he will pass the ball. He will move the ball. He's not going to be a big shot blocker, but that's not his game. But I think he's doing a phenomenal job for a freshman. I think he's absolutely everything you want. And the other thing is, like, he's getting points in the flow of the offense. They're not running plays for him. It's ball. The ball is moving. Okay, remember, go to the corner when you're supposed to go to the corner. We've seen him make that corner 3 multiple times. In certain situations where you're not going to get the defensive board and everything's opposite, you're supposed to turn and go. Well, we saw last night, turn and go, and what happens? They hit him twice. Once was a layup, the other time nice alley-oop done. So I think he's playing tremendous basketball. And also, I love his motor, and I also love motor plus intelligence. It's one thing to just have a motor, but some guys just have a motor, and all they do is end up out of position half the times. You love the effort, doesn't help you all that much. The guys who have great motors and also have great awareness and say, okay, where am I supposed to be? I'm hustling to the right spot a high percentage of the time. And freshmen are going to have some struggles. But I think you're spot on about Sisley. I love Trent Sisley. I enjoyed covering him, all 4 years of high school basketball. I mean, there was a reason I got on a plane and flew down the Sunday after his IU visit, because everybody was like, hey, Rabbi, you may want to go to Montverde. Pretty sure Trent Sisley might have something to tell you if you go down there. Oh, okay, thanks. Go down there. So I was down there the day he committed to IU. And you're talking about a kid who was happy. I mean, most kids are happy when they commit, but some of them really struggled with the decision, and they're kind of reading the script and blah, blah, blah. That was incredible joy talking to Trent Sisley the day he committed to IU. That was, I mean, real joy. So you talking about somebody who was born to be a Hoosier. Trent Sisley's on the list.
So you like him? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, did I talk too long there? I'm sorry. That was way too long. I apologize.
No, listen.
I've covered it for 4 years.
I get it. No, Rabbi, I get it. I mean, I get it. I mean, obviously, somebody told me that when he came in and he signed, they said, look, he's going to remind you of a 2025 version, if you will, of like an Eric Anderson, and a guy that can score in different ways and be a contributor right away as a freshman. And you're dead on. And it's a great breakdown of what makes him unique and special, both in the half court and transition and everything else. Trent Sisley and the Hoosiers next Saturday versus Bethune-Cookman. That is a noon start. And, of course, everything will be covered at Peegs.com with Jeff Rabjohns. Rabbi, appreciate it as always, man. I wish you and your family and everybody the happiest of Thanksgivings. Enjoy the time, and then we'll be reading the coverage as the Hoosiers and Bethune-Cookman get back on the floor on Saturday.
Thank you, my brother. Happy Thanksgiving to you, to your family, and to all your listeners as well. Have a great time, and we will get the chance to hang out here soon, hopefully.
Appreciate it, man. I look forward to it. Jeff Rabjohns joining us, Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Always a good conversation. We come back. I've got a question for Eddie. Are you familiar with Eddie on social media? The AITA. Do you know what that stands for?
Nope.
Am I the jerk? I have a question for you that I need you, Eddie Garrison, to determine whether or not I'm being a jerk or whether I'm out of line in my thought process on something that I feel like I'm entitled to. We'll do it next. And by the way, plenty of talk, Colts and Texans. We will get into that 1 o'clock hour as well. And Joel Erickson at 2:30. Thanks to Jeff Rabjohns first time. Okay, Eddie, do you have the ding and buzzer?
I always have the ding and buzzer.
Okay. I'm simply going to give you the scenario that I'm in, and then I want you to tell me if and I'm going to then say, am I out of line here? If I'm out of line and you disagree with me, you're going to ding it with ding. Yes, Jake, you are wrong. You're out of line. If you agree with me, then you're going to buzz it and say, I'm not out of line. You know what I mean? Or how about this? We'll do it, make it easier. If you agree with me, ding it. If you disagree with me, you buzz it. Okay, you ready? Okay. I'm not going to say the establishment or the event because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, and I genuinely like the event, obviously, in the establishment. But there is something that we do every year, this time of year, around the holidays. Shannon and myself, every year.
Okay.
I'm a very tradition regimented guy.
You don't say.
I like things, and my brain is such that, like, no, this is I want to park in this parking spot.
Yep.
I want to do this. I'm regimented.
I still remember when somebody took your parking spot one morning and you threw a fit on the morning show.
Yeah, you completely throw off my day. So there is something that every year I buy tickets for. Okay. And I went on probably a month and a half ago. I thought, I can't wait to buy my tickets for, once again, like our 10th straight year of doing this tradition. And I went, and it said, like, tickets go on sale in 4 days. So I literally, on the 4-day, I put it in my phone, like, oh, that's the day tickets go on sale. I went on, I bought 2 tickets. I bought the tickets for it. All excited. I'd come home. I'm like, super excited. We're doing it again, 11 years in a row. 3 days after I bought the tickets, I get an email from the organization saying, it's the early bird special. Use the code blank for $50. $50 difference. $50 savings. So this particular thing, you have to physically pick the tickets up at the ticket booth once you purchase them. Okay. So when I went to go pick up the tickets, even though the event has yet to take place, I went to go pick up the tickets and said, hey, just out of curiosity, I bought them on the very first day that you put them on sale. And like 3 days after that, I got an email saying that with the early bird special, it's $50 off. So I was even earlier than the early bird. I'm your dedicated number one P1 customer.
Yep.
And they said, oh, yeah, no, we just do that to incentivize people to buy once tickets have been on sale for a while. So you're better off just waiting until later. The advantage you had is you get to pick better tickets. So we're not going to, and I'm like, I didn't know if you could like maybe give me a voucher for something, or I typically, if it's $5, I probably wouldn't say anything, but I'm like, $50, that's whatever. So I was like, wait a minute. So you can't give me a credit because I bought before the early bird special was even presented to me? Like, how many people even bought on day number 1, and on day 3, if I'd have waited 2 more days, I didn't know that. So I'm thinking to myself, I was like disappointed, not just because of the $50, but on the principle of it. And I thought, you would think that they would say, you know what, clearly you're a very good customer. You bought on day number 1. Our apologies. We didn't even think of that. Yes, we're going to go ahead and issue you a credit on your credit card at $50. Now, my disappointment or my somewhat incredulous digestion of the fact that they completely blew it off and they're like, yeah, man, sorry. Like, unfortunately, early bird doesn't get the worm. It loses out on $50. Am I right or wrong?
So if ding is right, X is wrong.
Ding means you agree with me. X means you're on their side. You're on their side.
I mean, you can't go to a gas station and fill it for $2.98, and the next day it drops down to $2.78. It's like, hey, I came in here yesterday,
okay,
and I got gas for $2.98. Can you reimburse me?
That's fair.
20 cents for however many gallons you purchased.
Okay.
That's how I look at it.
Gas is the one thing that you buy that it is weird because it's the only thing that the price that you're paying is determined on how much it costs to replace it, not to produce it, which is weird. But so you don't think that I'm in the wrong here? You think I'm in the wrong here of being like, come on, man, seriously?
Yeah, it just was bad timing on your part.
What I thought to myself is next year I'm just going to wait longer to buy the tickets, and I just might forget altogether. I just may forget altogether.
You won't forget, knowing you, Jay.
But that's what they're saying to me. She actually said to me, "Oh, you're better off waiting later to buy your tickets." Okay. Well, I'm sorry for being penalized for being excited about your product. Upcoming Indy Star, we will preview the high school football state finals. Probably talk a little hoop as well. But the Colts and Texans, big one, Lucas Oil Stadium coming up on Sunday. Now, Eddie, I would like for you to answer this question in this form. Are you ready?
Always ready.
If you were to rank Thanksgiving foods, now not based on what you like, but based on the priority of how important they are to the Thanksgiving dinner. Turkey is obviously number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two would probably be what, like mashed potatoes, right?
I don't like mashed potatoes, so no.
Like I just said, not based on what you like, but based on the precedent of a Thanksgiving dinner in terms of like what you think of as the traditional. Turkey would be number one.
Stuffing.
Okay, I'll put stuffing 2 then. Mashed potatoes 3.
Cranberry sauce.
That's probably like 5, right?
Pumpkin pie or sugar cream pie.
Okay, pumpkin pie would be very high on the list.
Or pecan or
then
pecan.
You get your auxiliary stuff like rolls. I know some people like mac and cheese on Thanksgiving. Not my style, but I know that people like that. I mean, a salad would maybe be in there for some people. Based on all of that, your concern for the Colts in going against the Houston Texans defense, your concern level would be the equivalent of the priority of what food on a Thanksgiving plate?
What did we determine was number 3?
I would say stuffing.
Probably that. I'd probably go stuffing.
So you're putting it pretty high.
Yeah, if we were doing a DEF CON level, it's probably DEF CON 3.
So then let me ask you this. Your concern that Daniel Jones is regressing and is not going to be able to get back to September Daniel Jones?
Probably in connection to where I have the Colts, because I think they're going to go as he goes.
I know, but I'm saying what food item is that?
Oh, it would still be stuffing, DEF CON 3. I think they're tied at the hip.
Okay. That defense, I believe that this is a bad matchup for the Colts. Not because I think they're going to lose. I don't think they're going to. But when you look at the upcoming schedule, I am a believer in momentum, and I'm a believer in sports psychology. In any sport, especially an individualized sport, golf, tennis, basketball to an extent, even though it's a team sport in terms of the way you're shooting the basketball. Anything that you do, if it gets in your head, bowling, if it gets in your head, everybody's been in the zone. And there's an opposite form of that where it's like you forget. It's like the yips. You just forget what it was. The muscle memory that you knew forever that allowed you to do something at a high level went away. I don't think that's the case with Daniel Jones. Don't get me wrong. But the thing that Daniel Jones was doing so well in September and October was he was making all of the right reads, all of the right plays, and pushing all of the right buttons. He knew when it was time to tuck and run, he was really good at it. When it was time to, go through all of his reads and go ahead and find the last guy, a Tyler Warner or Josh Downs, and wait and be patient and let the clock in his head let him know that he still had time to throw, he was really good at it. There were just a number of things where he seemingly was able to push the right button every time. And then Pittsburgh comes in and they blitz the heck out of him. He starts turning the ball over. And you go, okay, you have Atlanta in Germany. Everything can kind of balance itself out. And in that game, again, he started to look rushed. He started to look a little bit, panicked is the wrong word, but his patience seemed to elude him. And then you have the game, obviously, against Kansas City where it wasn't that he was turning the ball over, but he was never able to get in rhythm in terms of his passing game. And he needs to get back on the horse just in terms of that muscle memory of letting things, of quieting the noise and standing in the pocket and knowing to go through his reads, not get panicked, run when he needs to run, etc. The way that seemingly everything was the correct decision in September, October. The reason why this game seems to come at a terrible time is not just because the Colts are coming off of 2 losses in their last 3 games, and not just because it's a divisional foe, the first of 2 games that they have against them, and you've got to end on the road in Houston, and not just because you still have Jacksonville twice as well, but more so because when you look at the remaining schedule and coming off of the Houston game, you've got Jacksonville, who's still kind of a wild card, but you still think of Jacksonville defensively can give you, and they does Jacksonville, the ability offensively to keep the ball away from you a little bit and prohibit you from getting in rhythm. Seattle has one of the best and most dynamic receivers in the game. San Francisco, one of the best offensive weapons in the game. So you are getting ready to go into games where offensively you are going to need to be clicking. You're going to need to be in rhythm. And if you're going up against the defense, even though I think the Colts win on Sunday, if Houston is again presenting aggressiveness on Daniel Jones and forcing him to again not get comfortable, he is again getting away from the muscle memory of what he was before. And I truly believe that confidence level, then you are then concerned because you're going to need that offense to be far more sound and precise over the next 4 games than you need it to be on Sunday. They can get away, I think, winning on. Does C.J. Stroud scare you? When you look at Houston, do you really say to yourself, boy, that's an offense that can just uncork points and uncork him in a hurry?
Especially since he hasn't played, the last 3 weeks?
Correct. And I know that he's another one. Ball placement specialist. He's been an in-rhythm guy over the course of his career. But this year, seemingly all of a sudden, there's discussion then of like, man, what's going on with C.J. Stroud? He seems off. Not off, but you know what I mean? It's not as, they're not as just precise as they've been in the past. And it's a tough matchup. It's a tough timing matchup and a tough matchup in general for the Colts. I think they're going to win. And it might be kind of an ugly win, but I do think they're going to win. But if they lose, Eddie, right?
Yep.
I mean, at that point you are, and whoever would have guessed, and that's, the NFL is such a marathon.
And then you have to go down to Jacksonville next week.
And then you got Seattle, right? You got to go to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to that game?
I wish I could go to Lumen Field and watch that game.
Is that what it's known as now?
Yeah, that's the name of it, yeah.
Have you been to a game there?
Nope.
Very loud. Great environment.
Been to a few Kraken games. Went to a couple Mariners games. Seahawks game.
Seattle and their fans are so loud. 12th man, they like the Colts have done. They have like the 12 retired number or whatever else. It is a super loud place. The only thing I can tell you about going to a game in Seattle, I've only done it once. I was covering the Colts-Seahawks game the year that Tony Dungy lost his son. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Dungy's first game back. I think he may have missed a game. They lost. My memory on this could be off. Can you look up that season for me? It would have been like the, 05 or 06 season. And the Colts were 13-0. They played 3 games. They were either 13 or 12-0. But I know they had Arizona and they had Seattle. And I think Arizona beat them here, and then they went to Seattle on Christmas Eve, right? And lost.
You are partially correct. They started 13-0.
Okay.
Lost to the San Diego Chargers in Week 15. Lost to Seattle on Christmas Eve the following week.
And then beat Arizona?
At home to conclude the regular season.
That San Diego game, that was here, right?
Yes.
It was a Billy Volek game, maybe. But either way.
Who?
Billy Volek. Billy expletive Volek, if you were to ask Colts fans. He was the quarterback for San Diego. I don't know if it was that year, but one of the years in the playoffs.
That was Drew Brees.
Okay. The years do start to run together after a while.
Boy, Michael Turner played for the Chargers? I didn't know that.
Yes. The one thing that I will always remember about that game, and it's totally irrelevant, and it's totally irrelevant to this season, but it does, I will never forget it. And that was that Colts team was 13 and unblemished. And I had to go for Tony Dungy's son's service and cover it. That was always a very uncomfortable assignment because you have the morality dilemma of, like, should we be here? But the duty calls, and that's what the job was. And so, anyway, I covered that game, and I remember seeing the buses roll in of the entire team and thinking to myself, there's no way anybody's going to beat these guys. I mean, just the solidarity of this group, the emotion of it all. And when they went to Seattle, and at that point they had a loss because they had lost to San Diego, but when they went to Seattle, the Seahawks, that Seahawks team, I think, was trying to punch itself into the playoffs maybe, or, whatever. But the genuine generosity and appreciation for the moment and the understanding of the emotion that the Seattle fans showed towards Tony Dungy in that game was something I'll never forget. It truly, and it was Christmas Eve and everything else, but they were very, very kind. They were very kind and very they handled it the right way. But this particular game on Sunday, again, Daniel Jones, and he has been a different level. He was at times, we thought, in the MVP conversation, and then all of a sudden, the last couple of weeks, I wouldn't say that he looks completely lost and clueless, but he has slipped back just a little bit, by the way.
Speaking of lost and clueless, we bring on Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star.
That's exactly right. Kyle Neddenriep joining us now because it is high school football championship weekend at Lucas Oil Stadium. Everything getting underway on Friday. I keep wanting to say tomorrow, but tomorrow Thanksgiving, of course, then on Friday and Saturday. And Kyle has been covering it all year long and has been nice enough to join us on the Java House Peel and Port guest line over the course of the high school football season. Kyle, you fired up? You ready to go?
Yeah, almost getting there, getting a lot of preview stuff done, and trying to just kind of get through the today, and then hopefully have most of the tomorrow to hang out with family. But yeah, we're getting there.
Okay, Eddie and I were just talking about this before we get to the games. I want your thought on this. Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm not going with what you like. I'm going with the priority here, okay? Turkey is clearly the most important dish of a Thanksgiving dinner. What would you say is the second most important dish?
Of the dinner, not dessert, the actual dinner.
Well, dessert also. I mean, pumpkin pie would be – pie might be second most important behind turkey, right?
Pumpkin pie is definitely second for me. I would say the next for the meal, I mean, I always have to have dressing and potatoes. So it'd be between those two, I would say. Mashed potatoes probably first.
Okay, I would say mashed potatoes second also. What about dinner rolls? Do you put dinner rolls up there?
Yeah, definitely. I would say a plate of turkey, mashed potatoes, dressing, and one dinner roll would be the go-to.
You a green bean casserole guy?
Not really, although I will eat it.
Okay, I'll eat it, but it's not my preference, right? Because it's there, right? It's like the guy that climbed Everest. You did it because it was there, right?
Right. I'll eat it, but I won't have seconds, so I'll say that.
Well, I'll tell you what, my brain went a completely different place on that syllable there that you just said. Okay, so let's get to the games and the matchups now that we are at the culmination of the high school football season at Lucas Oil Stadium. The matchup to you that is the most intriguing, or that the more you look at it, the more you crunch it, the more prep you do, the more you say to yourself, I can be absolutely sold either way on this game, on these two teams. This is the best matchup of all of them.
Well, it might be because I'm writing about it right now, but the Cascade Fort Wayne Bishop Lures game in 3A might rise to that level. And I say that because I just watched Cascade Saturday. their offense is unusual and it's fun to watch. They're kind of a hurry up running team. They get up to the line and they try. And a lot of teams will do that where they get fast and then they'll kind of look to the sideline, and they do some of that, but they will also go extreme hurry up, and it's kind of unlike many things people have seen, I would say, to the extent the quickness of which they run their offense, but also on the other side, Fort Wayne Lures, coming off that win over Knox last week and really holding Miles McLaughlin to under 100 yards and kind of dominating that game up front. This is going to be pretty fascinating to see that defense against Cascade's offense. So that one is really interesting.
First
to me.
time there for Cascade, right? Am I right in that?
Yeah, they've never been there before, and they're one of Brownstown Central's the other team in 2A. They have not been there before either. Those are only two this weekend that are new to the state finals. But I would say that one's really. I mean, there's a few that are. The 6A game, obviously the rematch. I think New Pal Merrillville. Also I just wrote about that game too, so I'm kind of familiar with just this recency bias. But that one looks really interesting to me. But Cascade Lures, I think the Friday afternoon, would that be Friday at 3 p.m. I think will be a really interesting game.
Cascade and Brownstown Central, by the way, also the only two 14-0 teams. There are a couple that are 13-0, including Brownsburg. But I want to go back to this about Cascade and Lures. Obviously in this area, Kyle Neddenrip, we don't see Bishop Lures as much out of Fort Wayne. But I do know of teams that when you look at their schedule and you say, okay, they're 9-5. But we've seen this with Cathedral before. We've seen it with Chittard before, where teams go out and test themselves and play up in the regular season, and then that allows them to be battle tested for the postseason within their class. Is that what Lures has done?
Yeah, definitely. They started 0-3, but then you go back and look at their schedule, and it's like, well, shoot, they played. They're playing up. Playing teams that are bigger than them in almost every scenario. So, it's not a situation where it's not like they were just playing poorly. Andrean's one of the teams they lost to. They're a 2A state finalist. But other than that, their schedule's pretty much all 6A, 4A, 5A teams. And then they get into their 3A once the season's over. So, it's an unusual situation where their talent level doesn't always match the record. And the last team it is pretty unusual to have 5 losses and make it this far. I think seven teams all time have won a state title with 5 losses or more, and Cathedral was actually the last team to do it, and it's been, I think, 11 years ago was the last time it happened. But Lures actually did it once too in 2009, so it does happen occasionally, and a lot of the times it is teams like Lures and Cathedral and the teams that really play a tougher, higher level opponents than their class. So I think that's pretty much the case here. I don't think anyone who knows Lures, no one's ever made it here to the state finals as many times as they have. So when you see their helmet and their name out there, I think everybody knows you're getting a really good team. So it's not like it's not like this is an upset type situation. But yeah, it'll be fun. Lures is a little bit young on offense and they're older on defense. So I would say that's that'll make for some intriguing matchups on both sides of the ball.
Okay, let's click through a couple of other of the local teams. Kyle Neddenrip, my guest, Java House Peel and Port guest line where you're hearing his voice, Indy Star where you read his work. New Pal and Merrillville, let's go back to that. New Pal obviously as good as any program in the state. I think they've won, 26, 27 in a row. But Merrillville presents what challenge?
Well, their offense is just really outstanding, and they're over 200 yards per game, both running and passing, which is pretty unusual. And their quarterback, Michael Hill Jr., very dynamic player, over 3,000 yards passing, 30 touchdowns. And then they have a Cameron Jordan is sort of a running back / receiver. He kind of does both for them. And then J.Q. Johnson, their running back, is well over 1,000. I think he's 1,300 yards rushing. So so that's the matchup. I think that'll be intriguing in that game is New Pal's defense, which has been awesome, all season. They give up, pretty much literally nothing to anybody. I think they're allowing 4.6 points per game, and they just try to take the run away and then make you one-dimensional. And I think that'll be interesting here because Merrillville does kind of want to throw it and spread it around, but also run. So a lot of interesting matchups in that one, I would say. And then, New Pal's been good on offense. They haven't blown some of the teams they played in the tournament, like East Central and Cathedral. They haven't blown them away by any means, but they've done what they've had to do. And, again, they are, very diverse on offense. They can throw in pass, or they can throw in run, including their quarterback, Jacob Davis, who can do both as well. So that'll be, I think that'll be a fun game too, Friday night, just to kind of see the two teams on the field and how they stack up. There's definitely some, mystery, I think, of how that game will look.
Okay, in Class 4A, Ron Colley, locally speaking, going up against Fort Wayne Dwenger. And these two, if I'm not mistaken, started the year against each other in a big shootout, 3-0 game. Which of these two teams has matured or grown the most since then, or do we expect a similar type of defensive slug?
No, I don't think it will be, to that extent. I think you would probably lean more towards a defensive type of game. Just looking at Dwenger's team, that's just kind of how they are as an overall team this year. I mean, they just don't give you a whole lot. And really the only tournament game they've given up very much is Lebanon, which scored 27, but they gave up way too many that game. Dwenger had 39 points and, had a big game offensively. But I think Ron Colley, the way they have improved this year throughout the season, and again, their schedule's pretty front-loaded where you have to play Chittard and some of the good teams up front, Franklin Central and, some bigger schools. But, they've really turned it on. That win over Chittard in the sectional championship, 26-6, I think turned a lot of heads, and, they've kind of kept it going from there. Really took it to Heritage Hills last week. So, yeah, I mean, they're, Luke Roeder, Alex Jarvis, two guys for them who have really come on second half of the season as receivers, and, Jarvis runs the ball as well quite a bit for them. And then Colin Ash has had a great year at quarterback. So, it's a typical Ron Colley team, that defense, special teams, the things that Ron Colley's known for, running the ball, are all good, but they've improved in the passing game to where they can make it tough on you there too. So, yeah, I think Ron Colley, I picked them to win. I think they're going to win the game, but I think it'll be a good battle in 4A.
And then in 6A, obviously, as you had mentioned, it is two teams very familiar with one another in Westfield and Brownsburg. Probably some fireworks offensively in that game as well. We will be reading all of the coverage at the Indianapolis Star. Kyle, when it comes to the pumpkin pie, enjoy it. Enjoy the family and the relaxation before everything gets underway on Friday and Saturday at Lucas Oil Stadium. And certainly appreciate your time each and every week in joining us. And it was only the one time, I believe, that you were lost and clueless, right?
Exactly, yeah. It's been all good since then. So.
That's right. Kyle, we appreciate it, man. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
All right, you too.
All right, Kyle Neddenriep joining us on the program. We come back. There is, in fact, at the collegiate level, a big one that is taking place, and a guy that has a little bit of extra hardware already accumulated on the shelf and going for it from the team standpoint. Talking about on the near west side, and I'm talking about Marion. We will talk to their head coach, who is award-winning, and we'll do it next. football is, in fact, a team sport. And obviously, it is the collection of young men coming together to reach a common goal. In the case of Marion, that common goal has been, of course, rising to the very top. And Marion is accustomed to that. They have won a national championship. They are back in the postseason. The NAIA Football Championship Series takes place coming up on Saturday on the near west side. Dordt University of Iowa, who are the defenders, and aptly named because they're coming off a shutout in round number 1, now working their way to take on Marion. And in doing so, they will be going up against a group, and this is why I mentioned that it is, in fact, a team sport, but yet you still have individual awards that can take place, and that is the case with Marion because for the third time, I believe the third time in program history, the Regional Coach of the Year joining us on the program now, Coach Karras from Marion. Coach, this is the third time for Ted Karras Jr. named the AFCA 2025 Region 2 Coach of the Year. Am I correct in that?
You are correct, sir.
Okay. I want to – so first off, congratulations, right? And I want to get to your guys in a second here, but I'm curious from your standpoint, and we know and we've well documented your story, that you were at Marion, you were a 2-time Coach of the Year, then you come back to lead the program again. It's a tremendous honor, and I'm curious of this. If you had to assess it, is there any way that you are a different coach today than you were, let's say, a decade ago when this award was also won by you, maybe because of the change of the game itself? But has anything about Ted Karras changed?
I would say probably not. You know, I've always been a player-centric type coach, and, you know, a lot of my philosophies throughout my career have, you know, gone along that route, you know, so I'd say not a whole heck of a lot. I've always improvised and adapted, you know, on a daily basis, continue to do so here in my second stint at Marion, and just really pleased. But I take a lot of input, too. You know, like, for instance, tomorrow morning's practice, everyone wanted to move it up a little bit, even to go earlier in the morning on Thanksgiving. So I'll do that, you know, at a show of hands. We vote on it, and I wasn't going to do that at first, but I did it. So, you know, just little things on scheduling are always a big deal. And then just getting back to that award, man, the only reason I get that is because of, you know, the players producing, the coaches coaching them up, man. Everything came together really nicely so far this year, and we got to keep it rolling here on Saturday.
Well, and rolling is what you guys have done, right? I mean, you've scored 107 points in your last 2 games, and no slouch either because, you know, Saint X of Illinois that you guys beat a couple of weeks ago is a darn good team. You beat them 45-zip, so I know you had to be thrilled with that. But when you talk about the player accomplishment for this award, or for the fact that you guys have, you know, you're riding this 10-game win streak going into the postseason, what guys or what thing about this group are you the most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of their leadership throughout, from starting last winter and throughout. This group, we have a really good group of seniors, and I have a lot of captains. I have about 10 captains. And they've really done a good job of just, I don't want to say, I guess, policing the team, making sure everyone's on task, make sure everyone's locked in, as they like to say. And I am most proud of that and how we've also gelled as a team. We have quite a few new players. Everyone's, you know, come together really, real nice.
In terms of your defense, it seems to me, Coach, and maybe part of this is schedule just in terms of the offenses you're going up against, but it looks to me like in the last, let's say, 4 weeks of the year that your defense has notably – your offense has really been pretty high clicking, right? But defensively it looks like you guys have really narrowed in. What has been the difference?
I just think our substituting on the D-line, I think we do a really good job of that, putting pressure on the quarterback, really knowing the game plan, the teams that we're playing. We have a big challenge this week, by the way, defending the option. But really, I just think, you know, flying to the football, you know, creating turnovers. We are first in the NAIA in interceptions, which is big, and we're like 5th in sacks. Those are all big play type, you know, things that have really helped us here the last few weeks.
Okay, I want to get to the option because the option is one of those, I think about, say, Georgia Tech, for example, or like Navy. Navy forever ran the option, right? I mean, SMU ran the option back in the day. It can be, if it's done well, it is so hard to defend. What is the key to defending I mean, honestly, how do you hone in on the option, because it is so unique and so few teams do it? How do you prepare for it?
Well, the first thing on the option is you got to take the first, option out of it, and that's the dive. So you got to stop the dive, and then everything else goes from there. And there's a few things you could do differently to do that. But number one thing is we got to stop that first play, and that's the dive. And then you got to stop the quarterback, then the pitch. So everything goes from there. But that'll be the key. We got to make them try to throw the ball more. If we can't let them get comfortable in their option. And if the quarterback does keep the ball, he needs to pay on the west side.
I like that. He needs to pay on the west side, which, by the way, you don't have to pay a lot to go to see Marion. That's one of the great things about it at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Everything getting underway on Saturday. This is going to be a 1:05 kick on the near west side. One other thing about the option, Coach, because when I watch it, it can be so incredibly effective, but at the same time, it would seem like it would be an offense that would be really hard to master. So which is harder, being a defense that is not used to seeing an option and then having to, like on a short week or, in a short amount of time, learn how to guard against it, or perfecting it if you are an offense that is wanting to run it because so few people can do it with that precision? Which would be the bigger challenge?
I think the bigger challenge, for us, it's defensively trying to stop it. They've had a lot of time. They've had since August to hone in on what they want to do option-wise. We've had, a week. So, the challenge, I think.
Well, I just mean like learning it in general, like as an offense. You know what I mean? If you're going to institute that as an offense, how hard is it to find a guy that can actually execute it week in and week out so that you're relying on it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a good point right there. I still think defensing it is tougher, though.
What about, aside from that, what area at this point is there an area, Coach, that Ted Karras is our guest from Marion? As you get set for this game, you've got a real good idea who you are at this point. But when you are a three-time Coach of the Year, it's because there's always something you're looking to perfect. What is the white whale of this team? What is the one aspect of this team that you have one eye on the ceiling at night thinking to yourself, we got to shore that up?
We got to play really disciplined football on the back end. In addition to all their option stuff, they got a lot of trick plays too, where they're going to fake this option. Everyone's going to be flying up, and then they've been throwing over people's heads. So being really disciplined on the back end is going to be key this game.
You guys are accustomed to this, the postseason. It's part of Marion's brand now, right? I mean, we are used to seeing Marion in the NAIA, football championship, contending for national championships. Your guys have gotten to this point now, and they're playing well, and they've won 10 in a row. What do you do, and how do you enforce to them to let them know that this is the new season now, and now it starts over again, and just getting to this point is not the complacency? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Sure. No, I don't think anyone's feeling that. I think they're hungry because we didn't make the playoffs last year. We thought we may have should have. So I think there's a big hunger factor with this group to, go all the way. But you got to take care of business on Saturday against a very tough team that's averaging 40 points a game. They're giving up only 14. And by the way, they're the least penalized team in all of the NAIA. So we have to be very disciplined in our approach on Saturday.
By the way, speaking of hungry, tomorrow's a big one. So you're going to take a vote. You guys are going to be able to get out and get to the Thanksgiving table. I'm curious for you. Turkey is the obvious. We've been asking this every day. The other two dishes that are most important to the Karras family Thanksgiving are what?
So I go to my cousin Eagle Creek. Turkey, yes, number one. Their stuffing, number two. But my dish, my contribution to the Thanksgiving is baked clams. I picked up 24 last night at the market, and I am going to shuck them tonight. And I put this beautiful topping on it and put a little lemon on it, and baked clams would be my second.
Now, hold on. Listen, you pepped up a little bit there. This is no joke in the Karras household, apparently, right?
Yeah, this is no joke. This is going on a couple decades of me doing this. Everyone looks forward to it. It's a little bit of work, though, man. You got to shuck 24 clams. I don't know if you've ever done that, but, it takes a little time. You can't rush. You'll jam your hand up. And then after that, I put a nice butter bread topping, garlic on it with some lemon, and everyone loves it.
This is impressive. Like, I mean, honestly, you're a regular gourmet. I'm Chef Boyardee over here. Microwave's the way I do it. You're up all night shucking and clamming and buttering. I love it, man. I absolutely love it. Well, listen. I hope you're able to shuck Dort coming up on Saturday. We shall see. Big one. They are 10th ranked. And as I mentioned, the defenders do exactly that, and then that option can be tricky. But, Coach, we wish you the best of luck. It is always a great product over there at Marion. And we look forward to talking to you coming up here as you guys advance, because I got a feeling here, and then we'll get the full Clam report as well.
All right, that's great, Jake. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Appreciate it. Same to you. Coach Karras joining us from Marion. Again, congratulations to him for the third time, the Coach of the Year at NAIA and the Division II region for Marion and the Knights. All right, still a lot to talk about. I want to get back into the Colts and Texans, including, we mentioned it, but there was one player that is not available for Indianapolis that you then have to wonder what that may mean in terms of changing the dynamic of what the Colts want to be on Sunday. We'll explain next. Been physical for Daniel Jones in terms of his leg injury. He has spoken, has Daniel Jones. We will let you hear what the quarterback had to say coming up just a couple of minutes from now as the Colts and Texans are getting set at Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday. Big aspect of this game that is one of those that you might not think about as significant. But the IR placement of Ashton Dulin, I think, is an important aspect of this game for the Colts because of the fact that I know that the phrase has always been next man up. You know, I know the saying of, you know, everything that goes into, hey, you know, that's okay. You know, we got the depth, and they have that in terms of Ashton Dulin, and we've already seen, you know, with Gould being able to come in and fill in on kick returns or punt returns in the return game. But Dulin has been, and I know that my arms are probably sore from carrying the water of Ashton Dulin too much. I get it. But I just think that a guy like that is able to play at the level that he's able to play when his number is called, because there's such a value in, yes, we know that Michael Pittman's a great receiver over the middle. We know that Josh Downs is a great receiver, you know, on a bubble screen or in space or when things are breaking down. We know that Tyler Warren has become a totally different dynamic for them. And we know what Alec Pierce has brought to the table. But how many times this year have you said to yourself, man, I did not have Ashton Dulin making a big play on my bingo card, yet he is able to do it. And that comes at, you know, when he's making a big receiving play, that's literally the $10 bill in your jeans when you're doing your laundry. That's like free money for the Colts. And that's not to say that they can't replace that per se, but you think of the special teams aspect of Dulin being out, and I think the more key and critical part of it is just the little, and I know that it's like one play per game. I get it. I'm not trying to overstate it. I'm not trying to oversell it. I'm not trying to be too much hyperbole here about it. But I think that there is such an important aspect to what he can bring to the table of making a play offensively, one per game. And that one game, that one play, and I know people are like, is this dude really going on about Ashton Dulin? I think he can be that sort of a guy. He can be a glue guy a little bit. And I'm very curious as to how, whether or not there are, and I'm going to guess there's going to be a situation or a play coming up here, maybe not this Sunday, but in the next couple of games where you're going to say to yourself, you know what, I never thought Ashton Dulin was a guy that I would be saying is a significant loss. But I hope I'm wrong, but I have a feeling about it.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, Dulin's one of our special teams aces. Obviously, he plays a lot for us and roles on offense. So losing a guy like that hurts us. But like we always say, it's the next man up, next man mentality, and get ready to go.
There you go. That's Shane Steichen, obviously, speaking there. Eddie, we have Fan Fest tickets to give away, correct?
Yes, two 4-packs.
This is such an awesome time of year in downtown Indianapolis because you have there's a certain, maybe I romanticize it too much, but I don't like cold weather at all. I don't like gray weather at all. But it's always been offset in my mind over the fact that there's kind of just this magic and this lore, and I know it's a different world now with, you know, online shopping and everything else. But, and I know that, like, you know, the downtown mall doesn't even exist, but I always think about just the hub and the activity of getting ready for the holidays, of scurrying into a restaurant for the group of friends that you get together with once a year, you know, to get ready to, and have a holiday drink or get together and you have a dinner together each year leading into the holidays or the office party or whatever else. And there are so many things that go on just in terms of us as a society, as a city, whatever, of getting back to what's truly important. You know, being around the people that are close to us, enjoying and embracing the experiences and the true meaning of the spirit of the season. And along with that, and this awakening that happens of people doing that, downtown is kind of the epicenter of so much activity that takes place beginning this weekend, obviously with the Circle of Lights and the high school football state finals. And then you look at the first weekend in December, and you have the Big Ten football championship game taking place at Lucas Oil Stadium. It seems as though it's a foregone conclusion that's going to be Indiana, and one would assume Ohio State, but who knows with that Michigan-Ohio State game what could happen. But nonetheless, then you have that day going into that, Louisville and Indiana at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. There are obviously Pacer games taking place over the course of the next couple of weeks. And one of the big things on the calendar for that is the Big Ten Fan Fest. Now, I want to be clear here. These are not tickets we're giving away for the championship game itself, but rather for the Big Ten Fan Fest celebration, which is adjacent or accompanying that at the convention center. And this is a celebration of Big Ten football. It is a chance for you to see trophies and records and photos and teams and cheerleaders and bands and everything that goes into the celebration of the Big Ten. It is very, very cool. It's a ton of fun. It's great for kids notably. And we have how many tickets to give away, Eddie?
We have 2 4-packs to give away.
So if you would like a 4-pack of tickets for the Big Ten Fan Fest right now, callers number what, Eddie?
Ooh, do we want to do callers or do we do a text line again?
We'll do the text line. That's cool.
Yeah.
The text line, 239-1070, 317-239-1070 is the number. But you have to answer a question, correct?
We can do a question. They can guess a number. I don't know.
Which way would we like to do it?
I don't care, Jake. It's your show. It's your giveaway.
That becomes interesting, right?
Yeah.
I asked the trivia question the other day. Did anybody get that right in terms of who was the MVP of the first Big Ten championship game?
Yes, we had people get that one right. Correct, yeah.
Okay, so then the better question would be this.
Russell Wilson was the answer.
Wilson was the correct answer for Wisconsin, right?
Yesterday's trivia question was, what college did Trey Essex go to? That was Northwestern.
Also a Big Ten question. Goes without saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then how about this one? Okay. That Russell Wilson game that I had mentioned where he was the MVP of the Big Ten championship game, that was against what team? Who did he beat? Who did Russell Wilson beat to be the Big Ten most valuable player in the Big Ten championship game? First 2 to get it correct, 4-pack to Big Ten Fan Fest. Final hour of the week for Eddie and myself, at least in terms of on air and our time with you. Eddie, did we get the correct answer for the Big Ten Fan Fest tickets?
Yes, we did. Plenty of people. Plenty.
Russell Wilson was the most valuable player in the Big Ten championship game at Lucas Oil Stadium, and its first installment played in that venue after he led his Wisconsin Badgers to the Big Ten title over. And yes, you might be thinking to yourself, well, that was Nebraska, right? When Wisconsin ran all over Nebraska. No, that was a year later. Russell Wilson did it against Michigan State, against the Spartans of Michigan State. That venue, Lucas Oil Stadium, will be home to the Colts and the Houston Texans coming up on Sunday. Lots of questions about the Colts from a health standpoint. Notably, as I talked about Ashton Dulin, we know that. DeForest Buckner is out. We know that. Anthony Richardson, that injury, I do worry for Anthony Richardson. That one might be relatively severe. But Daniel Jones also a little bit dinged up. Now, what we know is this. It is, and eventually, or we found out it is a fibula injury. Now, we had Kevin Bowen on. I am not a doctor. As a matter of fact, I haven't even taken a Sally Struthers medical class. Initially, Daniel Jones, what we heard was that was a calf injury. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the fibula is a bone. Is that correct, Eddie?
That is correct, yes.
Do we know which bone it is in the leg, the fibula? I mean, I know there's the tibia. I know there's the humerus, which I think is the funny bone. That's in the arm. I know, obviously, there's the femur. The fibula is which one?
The calf bone.
Okay.
It's one of the two long bones in the lower leg, located on the lateral side of the tibia.
Which is the shin?
That'd be your tibia.
There's a bone on the side of the tibia? I didn't know that. I've heard of the fibula. I didn't know that they're all connected, as we know, right?
Yeah.
But Daniel Jones did elaborate a little bit. Now, I'm going to put on my Freudian cap at the end of this. But before I do so, I will see if you folks notice what I do. Daniel Jones talking about and elaborating on and clarifying his fibula injury.
Yeah, it was just something that kind of was hanging over and realized it last week. And, just been trying to get treatment and make sure I'm in the best spot I can be.
From the Atlanta game or?
Yeah, I think it's just something I felt last week and tough to say exactly when. But, something I felt last week I looked at and been really good working with the trainers here and making sure we're ready to go, got a good plan.
Okay. Are you ready for the Freudian Jake Query overthinking it tinfoil hat, dare I say? Not literally a tinfoil hat, but it is me overthinking it perhaps. At the end of that clip, Daniel Jones says, it's been really good working with the trainers and getting treatment on it. And that is the only within a 29-second portion of that clip where he does not rely on and because when you are talking about something of which you are very sure and there is no question in your mind about it, you're not searching for words. I know this. I have to talk every day for 3 hours a day, right? But in 29 seconds there, he said or 8 times. Every 3.5 seconds, he was having to redirect or refocus his thought. Not saying that that's because he's lying about his injury. I don't think that's the case at all. But I think that he is a little bit bewildered about his injury and was uncomfortable in explaining it because he doesn't know exactly what it is and he couldn't clarify it. And that may be something to keep an eye on, or it may be another example, which is perfectly rational, of me way overthinking and overanalyzing it. But I found it interesting. And I'm not around Daniel Jones enough to know whether or not ums and uhs are part of his normal vernacular. But at the end of that clip, when he was then talking about his trust, his appreciation, his admiration for the training staff, he did not stumble at all. Because in that point, it's like, wow, okay, now thank goodness. It's like when I was on that airplane coming back, we're through the turbulence now, and now at this point, finally everything's smooth. I know what I'm talking about in this regard. But I do think that injury is one that Daniel Jones did show a little bit in that Kansas City game. There were times where He didn't look like the Daniel Jones we had seen earlier in the year in terms of the comfort level of when to go, when to run, when to get out of bounds, etc. He looked not totally hobbled, but he looked 85%, if you were to ask me. And it sounds to me like a guy that, yeah, there's something going on there, but he's not even totally certain of what that is. But there's also something potentially going on with his team. The Colts have dropped 2 of 3. They had a bye week thrown in there. And there's nothing, as I mentioned with the Kansas City game, it's not egregious to lose an Arrowhead, but it was a bad loss because you had the game won. And they got away from it a little bit and didn't salt it in the hands of their best offensive player in Jonathan Taylor. More on that in a minute. But as for what I was talking about, the Houston game can potentially be a boulder in the stream game, because if they drop that and now you've lost 3 of 4 and now all of a sudden you've lost a divisional game and you've got still Houston at the end of the year in Houston and you got Jacksonville twice and you got Seattle and San Francisco, that neither one is really a slouch. There is so much that potentially could happen if you were to lose this game. But for Daniel Jones, the question is, in fact, if you were to lose again, then you get into the area of what we would say is a skid, a losing skid. Daniel Jones, your thoughts on not letting 2 losses, for example, turn into some sort of a habit where the year gets away from you?
Just attacking the week as you would in any other situation. I think, we didn't play our best last game against a good opponent and a really good football team, and that's going to happen. So I don't think anyone here is making it any bigger than that. I think we understand the things we have to do better, the things we've done well all year, and it doesn't change our preparation or our process through the week. So we have a mature football team. I think the messaging from Shane and the coaching staff is that, and to be consistent and attack the week with the same energy, confidence, enthusiasm that we always do.
Okay. So Daniel Jones, I think, he's got to know, right? And you know what I didn't hear in that, Eddie? Is many ums and uhs, right? I didn't hear near the number of ums and uhs that typically he might give where he's searching for a word. Now, somebody has brought up the fact this may be, in fact, perfect timing. Should we bring back? I just had to renew the Elixir, right? So I had to renew the Elixir. And for those that are unfamiliar, Eddie, how would you describe the Elixir for people?
A waste of investment by this company.
Excuse me? Excuse me?
We spend so much of our budget, Jake, on this Elixir, and we only use it like once every 3 months.
But when we do, it comes under rave reviews. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah. People love the Elixir. The Elixir, how would you describe what the Elixir does? The service that it provides? Because if I'm putting this on my account and I'm not even expensing it, the Elixir does exactly what?
Okay, so what the Elixir does is it listens to whatever, an athlete, a coach, whomever speak. It listens to this clip and, it kind of runs it through its little thing. And next thing you know, it spits out what the player, athlete, person is actually trying to say. That's exactly what it does.
Do you think he's tried mustard with the cramps?
I don't know.
Because, I mentioned it's the enzymes that comes with the mustard itself?
Yeah, the enzymes,
That's if you take mustard when you get a leg cramp, the leg cramp goes away. Now, what we do with the Elixir, and we've had a lot of success with this, we play the sound clip, we run it through the Elixir, and then the Elixir tells us exactly what it is that the person is saying, correct? Isn't that how this works?
Yes.
Okay. So let me see if I've got it up here where we can get the Elixir running, because we got to dust this off.
You got to remember your login information and all that.
I do. It becomes a bit of a challenge. Now, in one time, I think we did the Elixir and it started spitting out in a different language, and then I realized that I hadn't upgraded.
Yeah.
Because it's an overseas product, if you really want to know the truth. Okay, so here we go. Play for me, please. Daniel Jones talking about his fibula injury.
It was just something that kind of was hanging over and realized it last week. And, just been trying to get treatment and make sure I'm in the best spot I can be.
From the Atlanta game or?
Yeah, I think it's just something I felt last week, and tough to say exactly when, but something I felt last week I looked at, and been really good working with the trainers here and making sure we're ready to go, got a good plan.
Okay, run that through the elixir if you could, please, Eddie. Okay, so it's deciphering what he had to say here. You get the reality. Oh, here we go. The results are in, right? Okay.
I got no clue, man. Tibula, fibula, all bones, man. Connected to each other. I don't know. Leg boo-boo. Tried mustard. But trainers are cool.
Okay, there you go. He
Leg
tried the mustard.
boo-boo?
Yeah, he tried the mustard, right? See, the elixir figures out what's going on, I'm telling you. The elixir absolutely, like for example, Jonathan Taylor was asked about carrying the ball. If you look at that game in Arrowhead, the Colts in the fourth quarter and overtime, what'd they have? Something like 12 plays for 13 yards. I think in that they got no first downs, didn't salt any clock, and Jonathan Taylor may be the best player on their roster offensively in terms of putting games away, and they completely abandoned him, right? So Jonathan Taylor spoke about that aspect of kind of being buried, if you will, on the sidelines, or not on the sidelines, but within the huddle, and not getting his number called in that game late in Arrowhead.
The same one. Just like in the offseason, you got to prepare for the workload, no matter how big, no matter how small. So in the offseason, you prepare your body to go the distance every single time. And whether that's, hey, we need you to block the Mike backer 15 times, or we need you to get 30 carries, I'm willing and able and I'm ready to handle anything that my team, the coaches, they ask me to do. So this week is the same thing. We obviously know what's at stake. We know that we're back at home. It's been a while, and we got to put a good product on the field, something that's different than Sunday for sure.
Did he just say we got to put something on the field, something different than what we saw on Sunday? Is that what he said? He sounded very optimistic there. Let me hear Jonathan Taylor one more time before we do the elixir. Let me hear it one more time.
The same one. Just like in the offseason, you got to prepare for the workload, no matter how big, no matter how small. So in the offseason, you prepare your body to go the distance every single time. And whether that's, hey, we need you to block the Mike backer 15 times, or we need you to get 30 carries, I'm willing and able and I'm ready to handle anything that my team, the coaches, they ask me to do. So this week is the same thing. We obviously know what's at stake. We know that we're back at home. It's been a while, and we got to put a good product on the field, something that's different than Sunday for sure.
In there, he seems to admit that what came out on Sunday wasn't necessarily. Now let's run that through the elixir and find out, because he sounds like that's a guy that was completely said all the right things there. Let's find out what he really meant. Okay, here we go.
I prepared but got a day off. But I was ready. I was there. The barbecue was cool. Enjoyed that in KC. My body is awesome.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's probably about right? Said all the right things to Jonathan Taylor, but they're going to have to, listen, they've got to get him going. I mean, the reality, Jonathan Taylor is an elite running back. And Jonathan Taylor is an elite running back because he can not only make big plays, but he can also salt games for you by keeping the ball away from the opposition's offense. And the reason that is so important is because when the Kansas City, for example, they not only are you able to run the football, salt clock, put the game away, potentially get a home run with Jonathan Taylor, but in addition to that, that gives your defense on the sidelines opportunity to catch their breath, to get their wind. And they did not, they clearly got away from that. And I think not only did the Colts sacrifice opportunity to, like they should have gone for, as we talked about, that 4th and 4, just to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands, but also because that's the style that they've become accustomed to, that aggression from Shane Steichen. But when they were getting away from that and trying to get Daniel Jones going and trying to go back to that well of letting him complete passes, letting him make plays, what they were doing then is not only never getting that train on the tracks, but they also were not allowing their defense any time whatsoever to catch their breath, regroup, even look over and sit down. You know, you see it on the sidelines all the time when guys are on the bench and the coaches are over there and they're going over things and they're schematically looking at it. They're looking at slides and they're saying, you got to do this, do that. They never had time to do any of that. And they were completely on their heels. Completely on their heels. And that's one of the things that they've got to get shored up before Sunday. Houston does not have the offensive firepower that does Kansas City. But still, they do have a stout defense, and you're going to have to be more creative and more aggressive in terms of getting your offense going, and Jonathan Taylor becomes, one would assume, a big part of that. I mentioned the game on Sunday is going to be the culmination of a special weekend in Indianapolis because this is the time of year, tomorrow being Thanksgiving, and then you go into the high school football state finals, and the weather, you know, obviously it's gotten colder outside, it's gray. You start thinking about the holiday season. And one of the things in which I have a great passion during the holiday season is the Hope for the Holidays for Firefly, which was formerly the Children's Bureau of Indianapolis. I have walked through their facility. I have seen the resources and what they do. And Firefly, which has been around in central Indiana for, you know, over 100 years and has been extremely involved in helping out families in central Indiana, and notably, and the thing to me that I always go back to. Years ago, I was at an event for the Children's Bureau, as it was known at that time, and I remember I felt this like tug on my sweatshirt, and I turned around, and it was a little girl that was probably 6 years old, and she looked up at me with these big eyes of like this hope and this appreciation for this fundraiser that was taking place, where I was just there as kind of a fly on the wall. But I saw what it meant for her to feel loved and to feel you know, that there were people that wanted her to be happy and were able to do what they could to provide for that. And at that point, I went through the Children's Bureau shortly thereafter, and this is an organization that takes kids that in the middle of the night, mom and dad have an issue, the police have to come, something happens at home. Children have a place to go with the Children's Bureau, now known as Firefly, where something, as much as they can stay there, they can spend the night there, they can live there, they still get to go to there and facilitate to go to schools normally so their peers are not aware of this disruption. But in addition to that, helping out families and families that are putting the pieces together or just simply need a little extra help, in particular during the holidays. And Hope for the Holidays does exactly that. It offers you the opportunity to sponsor a child, sponsor a family, make it so that everybody has a Christmas and everybody has the opportunity during the holiday season to feel what it is that is so important that the rest of us are able to enjoy and afford over the course of the holiday season, both financially and also in terms of emotionally. And joining me now to talk about that and how you can help out, she is the Vice President of Development for Firefly Children and Family Alliance, Jolie Haven, joining me on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Jolie, how are you?
I'm good, Jake. How are you?
I am well, thanks. I would assume that you are busy this time of year. Let's get right to this in terms of Hope for the Holidays and the sponsorship that is needed. The number of children and or families that have registered is roughly what?
Right now we're sitting right at 1,554 kids.
Okay, 1,554 kids. And Jolie, in terms of and you guys do a remarkable job of this, in terms of the wish list that kids ask for, you know, you think to yourself, yeah, okay, so I'm going to sign up and sponsor a child, and I'm sure they all want an Xbox or whatever else. To me, it is amazing because you look and the humble nature of these kids and the requests. Sometimes it's as simple as, look, I'd like hygiene products. I'd like, you know, clothing. Sure, it's great to get above and beyond and go for the big toys, but I want to emphasize for people that may not be aware of just the overall need for these kids, but more so the humility that comes with it and truly the grace that they enjoy during the holidays, but also the fact that this is not something where kids are trying to get one over, if that makes sense, right?
Definitely not. So we encourage our caseworkers to sit down with each family and build a wish list that's approximately $150 in value. And that wish list does always reflect, a few items that they would really like to enjoy this holiday season. But we also give sponsors an overview of the items that the families need, because each of these families is facing some really difficult challenges through this holiday season, and we want to make sure that fundamentally those kids have what they need in order to thrive.
The age of those that benefit from this program, the age range, if you will, Jolie, is what?
We serve all kids from ages 0 all the way up to 23. We actually work with a lot of youth who are aging out of foster care and are entering independence on their own, and we want to make sure that those young adults also know that they are loved and appreciated this holiday season.
One of the things that you guys do that, to me, Jolie Haven is my guest from Firefly over on, again, they have really statewide, but they are centered right on the near west side of Indianapolis, Firefly Children and Family Alliance. One of the things that you guys do is that is, to me, just so convenient and so helpful, is for each child that is sponsored, I say each, but for the majority of the 1,554 that we're talking about, Jolie, you guys have right there the Amazon wish list, if you will, where it's as simple as, if you'd like to do it this way, looking at it, picking out the 5 or 6 items or the 10 items, the 12 items, or however many you want to buy, and clicking on them, and then boom, you can get it, a variety of different ways in terms of the delivery. But you guys go, am I correct in saying, to great lengths to make sure that this is as basically as convenient as possible for those that are willing to be able to help out and sponsor?
Yes, absolutely. We definitely want our sponsors to be able to help in the easiest way possible. So they can certainly choose to sponsor a kiddo. And when they do, they'll receive a confirmation email that has that wish list in it. But as you said, many of those kids have links to Amazon items that they're looking for. So if someone wants to shop from the comfort of their own home, they can just fill up their cart. They can actually ship those items directly to us. They don't have to deliver in person. But if they want to visit us, delivery happens between December 3rd and December 16th. So we'll have lots of volunteers on hand to welcome them, to greet them, to help them bring in their items. We get everything checked in and then delivered out to the kiddos. So that is definitely an excellent way to participate if they want to sponsor an individual child or multiple children. But they can also just choose to purchase items off our general Amazon wish list by visiting our website, which is fireflyin.org, or they can make a monetary donation, and we take all of those monetary donations and pull them together and make sure that the kiddos who ultimately don't get sponsored will still have gifts for the holidays.
Okay, fireflyin.org is the website. Obviously, I would assume that right there on the website, it is very easy and self-explanatory as to how to get to the list of those 1,554 children, right? Right there at fireflyin.org.
Yes, actually, I'll clarify that Hope for the Holidays has its own dedicated website.
Okay.
So that website is h4h.fireflyin.org. So you can get to it from either website, but that'll take you directly there if you're looking to sponsor individual kids.
Okay, 2 things before we let you go here, Jolie. Number 1, I'm going to give my telephone number out for anybody listening. I think most people have it at this point. But I will also put up on social media the link where people can immediately go and get involved. But if you are looking for, please, at any hour of the day, you can send me a text at 317-523-9288. And I will send you the link on where you can adopt or sponsor, if you will, a child or family. You can do so up until what day? What is the deadline of when someone can decide to go ahead and sponsor?
We will leave the site open as long as we need to in order to get the kiddos sponsored. Currently, we are still adding children. The deadline for them to give us their wish list was last week. So my elves are busy working away at that, but we still anticipate having about 800 kids left to sponsor. So we'll leave it open for at least another 2 weeks in order to try and get all of their wish lists fulfilled. But then the cutoff date for delivery of gifts is definitely December 16th because we want to make sure that we can get that all out to them before the holidays.
Okay, we want to make sure, and it is a goal of mine to make sure that we get every single child that is in need sponsored. So again, all of the information there. FireflyIN.org is the website for the organization itself. Jolie, I do also want to pass along Bruce Kidd, who is a friend of mine and a friend of this radio station and the show, does an event each year. He does like in the summer and then usually in the fall, Concerts for a Cause, which is a fundraising effort that he does where he brings in money for different organizations. He knows what Firefly means to me, and he is a guy with a heart of gold. And so yesterday I went over to his house and picked up a check. I want to thank Bruce and Concerts for a Cause as well. But we have a check to start things off for you for $1,000, which I'll drop off to you, and hopefully that will get some 5 or 6 children sponsored, and we can get the start on the 800 that still remain. So I will get with you and get that to you, but it is my goal to make sure that everybody, all of the children are covered and everybody has a wonderful Christmas. So thank you so much for your efforts, and happy Thanksgiving to you as well, all right?
You too, Jake. Thank you so much for all you do.
All right, again, Jolie Haven, the Vice President of Development for Firefly Children and Family Alliance, and 317-523-9288. I will send you that link. Joel A. Erickson has been busy out at the Colts complex and gets the lowdown on who's in, who's out, and what we're looking for coming up on Sunday for the Colts and Texans. He joins us next. You know, how often do the Packers play on Thanksgiving Day? Doesn't it feel like the Packers are a typical Thanksgiving Day team?
It is the Cowboys, the Lions, and then that other game is typically up in the air. Like, remember Colts and Steelers has played on Thanksgiving before?
Yeah, it seems like the Packers and Bears play a lot on Thanksgiving, right? Am I wrong in that? Just because it's the NFC North, right?
Yeah.
So you naturally get it. I'm just picturing Joel A. Erickson growing up, that Thanksgiving would mean I'm not going to say mean more, but tradition. I don't know. I just think of Green Bay as maybe, you know what it might be? It might be, I think everybody in Wisconsin just eats and drinks all the time. And that's what you do at Thanksgiving, right? Maybe that's what it is. He can clarify. He joins us now, and I'm sure thrilled to be doing so based on that introduction on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line from the Indianapolis Star. Joel A. Erickson joins us. Joel, Thanksgiving mean more in Wisconsin, is that right?
Yeah, and you're actually correct. I looked it up while you were doing the intro there. The Packers have played the third most games on Thanksgiving. I think it used to not only be Lions games, but I think it was Lions Packers for a long time.
By the way, have you watched that? Speaking of Wisconsin, great Wisconsin traditions, have you watched that Netflix documentary on Ed Gein?
I have not.
Are you familiar with it?
I am familiar with who Ed Gein was, but the murder shows are more. That's my wife's purview more than mine.
Well, you better keep things in line. It appears, right? I mean, just for what it's worth, that Ed Gein he was a troubled individual, and I went to Plainfield, Wisconsin once to see, kind of where things took place, and I will say they were hip to my tourism, if you will, and didn't take necessarily kindly to it. Can't say that I blame them. But I've told that story before. No need to revisit it. All right, let's get to this. Colts-Texans coming up Sunday. Health standpoint, Daniel Jones, I'll begin there. He seemed to me to be almost like, when it came to talking about his leg, like he didn't know exactly what the deal was, but just knew that he continues to get treatment on it. What's the latest that we can discuss, or are we overthinking it?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. First of all, I mean, I think Colts fans know by now, Shane Steichen's kind of, his pattern is kind of, he'll tell you what the injury is only if the player is not going to come back this season. That's kind of his MO on how he talks about him. Jones has been typically guarded about it. He's kind of dropped some breadcrumbs, but then you kind of go, am I reading too much into him saying, it's good enough to go? Which is what he said, the other day, and we're managing it, that kind of thing. But all of that is kind of, the thing is, I kind of feel the same way you do. Maybe we're reading too much into it, because all of that stuff is kind of the stuff that most NFL players say when they talk about their injuries. I don't know how you felt. I thought that he looked a little bit less aggressive on the scramble last week.
Agreed.
Than he has previously.
Yeah,
So
agree.
I think it's bothering him a little bit. They were like, well, he had the first down, so he just ran out of bounds. But the Daniel Jones that I'm used to scrambling is borderline a little bit almost reckless with trying to get more yards. He definitely was not that on Sunday.
Do you think that if the situation presents itself again, where the Colts are in a tough game or a tight game late on Sunday, Joel, did Shane Steichen learn his lesson, so to speak? And by that I mean, do you see any way, shape, or form that they stick with the same game plan, or do they say to themselves, we got to go Jonathan Taylor a lot?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and Shane didn't, when we talked to Shane on Monday about it and asked, do you have any regrets? He said that final drive, he definitely probably should have run it a few more times, just with the clock situation where it was. I think part of it, and maybe this is something that he hasn't said yet, but I think part of it is just they outside of that 27-yard run, they didn't really do anything on the ground, and they also didn't really look like there was anything besides that run coming. Even in that second half, if you take that carry out, which that's not how the game works, but if you take that carry out, he had 8 carries for 9 yards. So I think that played a role in them going pass heavy. Now the pass wasn't really working in the second half either, but I think that played a role. I do think though you get in that situation again. The other thing I think he's got to realize is he's going to have to force some runs on first down, because those 3 fourth-quarter drives, they get an incomplete or a short gain or whatever, and then you're probably not going to run in second and long. Steichen just doesn't do that. Most teams don't do that. I think the number is something like 85% pass in a second and long situation. So if you want to keep it on the ground, you're going to have to run on first down.
Somebody just asked me this question, Joel, and I think it's a really good question, and I'm curious if it's been discussed at all, either with Shane Steichen or Daniel Jones. You mentioned the fact that it seemed like Daniel Jones was a little more apprehensive, like on his runs, getting out of bounds, that kind of thing with the leg. Could that leg also have impacted his accuracy?
I wondered if some of the, him throwing off of his back foot and kind of looking a little bit rushed on some of those blitzes, I wondered a little bit on Sunday if that could have affected him. Now, he hasn't said anything to that fact. Steichen hasn't said anything to that fact, but it felt different from what we've seen from him most of the season in terms of, especially early in the season, but even with the Falcons and Steelers games, it wasn't like he was, throwing stuff off of his back foot. If anything, he was maybe holding it a little too long when pressure was there. So I wondered if that played a role in it, or alternately, if some of those throws were because he looked at the Steelers and Falcons games and said, I can't take sacks and I can't fumble the ball. So when I get pressure, I'm going to get it out as quickly as I can. And in doing so, maybe sped himself up a little faster than he needed to.
Joel, Joel A. Erickson is our guest, Indy Star. He's on the Java House Peel and Pork guest line. By the way, Java House right now, 25% off store-wide. You can also get an additional 25% off Jake25, the code to use for the bundles on the Peel and Pork pods. Joel, when it comes to Anthony Richardson, and I know I get it. I get that it's a topic that probably people are like, look, Daniel Jones is the guy. But if Daniel Jones is in a situation where he is late in the year, there's a critical game, he's not able to go, or there's a half where he has to come out, and Anthony Richardson, theoretically, a guy that you would plug in there. But I have this bad feeling that this injury to Anthony Richardson might have been more severe than we initially thought. Am I off base?
Well, I mean, I think most people here, even with something as scary as, orbital fracture, I think a lot of people kind of felt like he'd be back, in the first couple of weeks. But, what we've heard from Shane Steichen is that the eye needs to rest. It needs to get better. I mean, we're a long way removed from that injury now. So yeah, I would say just the timetable in general tells you that injury was really serious. He had surgery on it. I don't know a ton about those things, but depending on the severity of the injury, it can be pretty bad. I actually had a guy that I played a lot of sports with in college had a broken orbital bone and a really bad pickup basketball thing, and I know they had to reconstruct his eye socket and his cheekbone. And I don't know if that's what happened with Richardson, but some of that stuff can get really involved.
Has he been seen around? I mean, is he around? We
saw him in the locker room last week.
Gotcha.
He's got a scar on that side. He's got a scar on that eye. It does look, his swelling and everything seems to be mostly down. But yeah, that was really the first time we've seen him, though, was when he was in the locker room last week.
Okay, in terms of the locker room, Joel, and you're around it, this team, I mean, everything was hunky-dory for so long, smooth sailing, everything's great, and now lost 2 of 3. I realize you have the bye thrown in there, right? But do you sense, do you feel, do you see, do you hear any sort of an apprehension going into games, or a tension, or just a pucker that did not exist a month ago?
No, in fact, the thing I thought walking out today, we've already done locker room today, and they have moved on. But the thing I thought today was just the way the Colts were talking about the stuff they have to do, versus the way, Colts Online or however you want to say it is responding to it, is that they do not feel the same tension that I think is maybe present in the parts of the fan base that are easiest for for people like me to see. Like I just felt like, you know, they're looking that, you know, they're talking about, you know, we have to be better against the blitz, we have to have more answers, that kind of thing. But it doesn't feel like a team that feels like it's lost its grip on the rope. It feels like a team that feels more like, you know, yes, there's some stuff we've got to fix, but it's not anywhere near time to panic yet.
Okay, Joel, most important question of the day. Turkey is the primary, obviously most important part of the Thanksgiving dinner. In the Erickson household, the second most important thing, not named pumpkin pie, is what?
Cornbread stuffing.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to argue that. There was no hesitation there at all, like none.
No. Cornbread stuffing is the second most important. That's
now, go ahead.
That's the one.
Okay, now, difference between stuffing and dressing. Dressing goes on the side and stuffing's in the bird. Is that right?
Yeah, and then the other thing is, so I don't know, like, so my wife is from Alabama. I don't know if this is true of all dressings, but like when they make dressing, it is like a very thin texture where it's like almost like the thing I always say that makes her upset is that I say that it's like eating cream of wheat.
Uh-huh.
But that's kind of getting you. It's not that bad, but it's kind of getting you the idea of what like their dressing is versus like what I think of as cornbread stuffing or dressing, where it's, you know, a little bit thicker and there's bigger chunks of cornbread and stuff like that. That's another piece of it that I don't know. I don't know if that's just my experience with Andalusia, Alabama Thanksgivings, or if that's the whole South, that their dressing is a little bit more thinned out.
Well, I got news for you, Joel. Based on the serial killer obsession of the wife, probably thin as in when it comes to your dressing from here on out, buddy. Right? I mean, you know.
Well, so in the Erickson household, I'm in charge of the stuffing. She is in charge of. There's two things she has brought from Alabama that are fantastic. She makes these green bean bundles that's like maybe the least accurate name ever because they're wrapped in bacon and they have brown sugar all over them. And then the other one is she has a sweet potato casserole recipe that is absolutely fantastic. So those are the two things that we brought north with us to make a part of the Erickson Thanksgiving.
I actually was kind of hoping you were going to say Crystal Burgers is what she brought, but that's okay. I mean, that's cool, right? I'm down with it. That's cool. All right, Joel, certainly appreciate the time as always. We wish you and your family a very, very happy Thanksgiving, and pace your – oh, you know what? Actually, go hard if you need to because Beer Fairy is making a visit to Wisconsin coming up in a couple of weeks.
Is that true?
Yeah. Orders might be taking orders. So, you know, you don't have to ration, you know.
That's good. I have the Great Lakes Edmund Fitzgerald Porter in the fridge right now. I don't know if you know.
Listen, you don't
I'm
want
sure
to tell anybody. Don't tell anybody.
Edmund Fitzgerald stuff.
Yeah, don't tell anybody that goes down easy, right? I mean, they take that. That does not go over well, for what it's worth. You know. All right, a little bit icy also. Joel, appreciate the time as always.
You bet.
Is it
you
too
and
soon on
Eddie
that?
have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, you too. It's
I'm
been
glad
50
Joel
years.
cares about me.
Yeah,
that was very nice of him.
It was. Well, I mean, you're the first guy he talks to each time he comes on, right?
Yes, he's lucky enough to have that.
We'll come back. We'll find out what J&V has happening. Love-HVAC.com, 317-353-2141, the number for Love Heating and Air, as they sponsor the crossover, and we will get you set with John next. I mentioned the crossover is brought to you by Love Heating and Air, love-hvac.com, the website, 317-353-2141. I've mentioned many, many times I grew up with John and Chris Love. And for all of my guys, there was no better night of the year for so many years. It literally is. Thanksgiving is fabulous. I look forward to the Drumstick Dash tomorrow, but it all gets underway tonight in what is just the best night to go out and enjoy a cold one and see your friends and reacquaint and people coming in town. It is awesome, and J&V is at one of the prime spots for that in Broderpool, getting set for what is going to be an electric evening, getting set for an electric weekend, and joins me now on the crossover. John, you're at Brothers up in Broderpool, correct?
I am at Brothers in Broad Ripple, and this is what I know as high school hookup Wednesday night.
No, listen, it is the best, though. Coming back and people coming to town and going out with people you haven't seen for a while. And, man, it is just such an awesome environment and atmosphere. And yet there's still plenty to talk about in the world of sports as well.
There's no doubt about that, too, Jake. I got a little hoopage later on tonight at Southport. Later on. After this, I'm going to go down there and play a little ball and go home and watch a little more hoop. But, no, seriously, this is how it should be done right here. And this is kind of an annual event we have with Brothers in Broad Ripple, too. So it's always fun. We have Colts tickets to give away, your chance to win a trip to the Super Bowl as well, at least a trip to Las Vegas to compete for tickets to the Super Bowl with our friends from Zinc and Bud Light. It is truly an awesome time. And what is an abbreviated week, because we're all getting together, or at least you guys are all getting together with the family. That's going to be great. But an abbreviated week at Brothers in Broad Ripple, which is awesome. And we've been doing this for the better part of 10-plus years, Jake.
And who else lined up on the show today? I mean, that stuff alone is awesome, but obviously a lot of conversation as well.
Yeah, we go up to Canada. I think both Denary and JJ will join Pacers and Raptors later on tonight. Mike Chappell normally on Thursdays, on Wednesday. Don Fisher normally on Friday is on Wednesday. And Bowen normally on Wednesdays on Wednesday. And, hey, how do you think Bowen did in Broad Ripple back in the day when he was free and easy on this night? Do you think he went home with all these bros empty-handed? Or do you think did he trip the light fantastic? What do you think happened to Bowen back in the days of his youth?
That is a good question. The real he probably would be the first to tell you. I mean, I don't know. Did he go home and analyze whatever the weekend's matchup was going to be? Possibly. I don't know.
He probably did. Yeah, I guarantee I know what he had to go home and do back in the day, Jake, because I think you and I probably had to do the same thing back then too. But we were out there giving it the old college try.
That's right.
And that's what matters.
That is exactly
as long as you're in the game. As long as you're in the – now, we'll say this. This is why we view it differently with the Colts. I mean, you got to be now more than just in the game. If you're Daniel Jones, you got to be above it and be able to play at a high level. But we were just kind of in the game. We were like the Colts of years in the past.
Of that year, of that era,
we're
right?
Kind of mediocre.
That's exactly right.
Exactly. Yeah,
right.
we're like the Dean Biasucci era.
I was just hoping to be Don Mikowski and find lightning in a bottle for 6 weeks, right?
No, hey, that was great. Seriously. You know when we think about it, though, the greatest lightning in the bottle was the end of that 95 season.
Oh, and how for sure.
How all of a sudden, there was like a Jack in the Box into the season where you're just kind of all of a sudden just pops out and they take off, and they're one of the better teams in the NFL for the better part of 3 weeks. It was amazing.
Zach Crockett's going for $160 in San Diego, and you're going, what in the world is going on here? You know? All right, Brothers in Broderpool, JMV will be out there. Going to be a ton of fun. Enjoy it, man, and happy Thanksgiving to you.
You got it, buddy. You too, buddy.
All right, JMV will be taking it over here in just a couple of minutes. We will be back with you, obviously, off tomorrow. We were also station-wide all off on Friday. It is a great time of year, and you folks enjoy all of it. The IHSA State Football Finals, obviously the Circle of Lights coming up on Friday. Colts game on Sunday. We'll talk about all of it on Monday.